So welcome again, ladies and gentlemen, here in Germany at Motorsport Arena Oschersleben for the last time in this weekend. On this weekend, let's finish the Sunday part of the program of the season opener of the 2023 ESET Cup series. It is the second race of Renault CLIO Cup, and we've got all the drivers on the grid ready to go racing once again. And the grid is topped by race 1 winner Tomáš Pekař. As you see, it's the complete Czech lockout of the front row with Martin Kadlecík alongside him in P2. Behind them, two Slovenians, Nick Stefancic, the Renault Twingo Cup champion from the previous 2 years, and alongside him Miha Primožič. Behind them, row number 3, that's 5th placed Szabolcs Lantos, and 6th Michael Hulm in the car number 74. Row number 4, that is Igor Tomljanovic and David Malinkovsky. 9th place Thomas Fischer, 10th place Adam Konopka, and then the last row of the grid, Jiří Zbožínek and Henrik Seibel. He had an incident in the race number 1 earlier on today, after which he had to retire his car. And it was his teammate and also team boss Tomáš Pekař who scored a victory with the Mark V Renault CLIO. We mentioned that already. We have got a 12-strong field here in Oschersleben, and it is divided between cars, well, the Mark V CLIOs and the Mark IV CLIOs, and we've got a combination of both of them on the front row of the grid. Tomáš Pekař with the newer generation, Martin Kadlecík alongside him in the previous one. And Martin Kadlecík, what a journey he's had. I mentioned it already this weekend. He came from virtual racing through the ranks of the Renault Twingo Cup last season, actually, which he got as an award for the virtual racing successes. Then he represented the Czech Republic at the FIA Motorsport Games in esports, and now he's back for the Renault CLIO Cup racing. And we go green here in Germany. Tomáš Pekař from pole position seems to get a good getaway, and he will be leading into the first corner. Martin Kadlecík immediately coming under pressure from Nick Stefancic. Miha Primožič on the inside in a fight with Michael Hulm. So Hulm up to 4th. That was a good start. On the other hand, Miha Primožič did not really negotiate the first couple of corners perfectly, and he's dropped a couple of places. Szabolcs Lantos up into 5th behind Hulm. Primožič trying to fight back, but Szabolcs Lantos closing the door. This is Jiří Zbožínek, the car number 11, and ahead of him Thomas Fischer and Henrik Seibel on the move. The other orange CLIO leading the race, that's Tomáš Pekař through the triple left-hander for the first time in this 25-minute race, and now around the right-hander in front of the local hotel. Through the chicane they go. It's bumpy and jumpy through there, and if you go through the bollards you can also quite nicely facelift your bodywork, as some drivers have done over the course of the weekend. Nick Stefancic actually driving a disguised Mark V CLIO as he crashed in the qualifying earlier on today, right in the morning. Fortunately, the mechanics of Lemma Racing managed to repair the damage. It was basically only cosmetic. The underlying mechanics were all fine, and that means that Nick Stefancic is able to race, and he actually staged a pretty good fight back through the race number 1 as he went from 9th on the grid all the way to 3rd. So he stood on the podium. He was 3rd overall and 2nd in his own class, only beaten by Tomáš Pekař. Pekař is leading this time out as well, having sat on pole. Adam Konopka had some sort of trouble in the beginning of the race, and he is currently last with quite a large gap to the rest of the pack. This is Igor Tomljanovic in the yellow grey-white Clio, and behind him Henrik Seibel. There they go. This is Tomljanovic trying to defend from Seibel, but he's opening the door on the inside. There may have been a little touch, actually. Didn't really see that properly. But both drivers managed to go through in the end without bigger issues. So it's still Tomljanovic a little ahead. This is the fight for 8th. Michael Hulm, in the meantime, set the fastest lap of the race so far, 146.7. And Seibel is through. He went aggressive into the right-hander. He was very late on the brakes, and he is now ahead of Igor Tomljanovic. Thomas Fischer will be the next one to try the same thing. Fastest sectors being shared by the drivers, and now Tomáš Pekář has set the fastest lap of the race in 1:42.299. On the other hand, though, Martin Kadlecik only less than a tenth of a second slower behind him. So nothing to choose from, the two right now, and they are staying together, staying close to one another. Martin Kadlecik not really allowing Pekář to escape like he did in the race number 1. They are still within a second from one another. So 4 minutes done from this race. We're on the 3rd lap. Pekář leading from Kadlecik, Štefančič 3rd, Hulm 4th, Lantos 5th, Primožič 6th. Behind them, Malinkovsky, Seibel and Tomljanovic together with Fischer. Michal Primožič on the back of the car of Szabolcs Lantos. This is the fight for the top 5 finish. Tomáš Pekář still leading the race. Not exactly comfortably. He isn't miles ahead like he was in race number 1, but he's at least preventing anybody else, well, everybody else, from attacking him directly. Martin Kadlecik simply trying to stay together with Pekář. I believe that everybody will try to bring it home safely. It's the last race of the weekend, and it's the first weekend of the season. No need for any drama here. Definitely not like they do in the European Championship. Martin Kadlecik has now stolen the fastest lap from Tomáš Pekář, but again they were just about a tenth of a second from each other. So 1:42.3 for Pekář, 1:42.2 for Kadlecik. And there is the fight between Lantos and Primožič. Well, the gap's still quite minimal within the, top 6. Malinkovsky then falling a little behind in 7th. So there is Pekář in the orange Clio, behind him Kadlecik as the leading car among the Mark IVs, Štefančič the second in the Mark V, and then again Michael Hulm in P4, and second in his own respective class. There's the fight for P5 overall. Ooh, a little bit of a wider moment for Henrik Seibel as he went wide, exiting the S's, and he skipped through the gravel a little bit, but he's back on the track. Szabolcs Lantos again opting for a wider entry, having braked rather later into the first corner, opening the door for Michal Primožič. But the Slovenian was actually unable to capitalize on that little error. Hard to say if it's actually an error as such or simply a different racing line. Both seem to have negotiated the corner at the same speed in the end. Seibel on the rear wing or rear bumper, if you will, of David Malinkovsky. David Malinkovsky also coming from the Twingos from the past seasons. And Seibel trying to find his way through. He is now alongside Malinkovsky, hard on the brakes into the right-hander, and up one place the German goes. One of the local drivers, fighting for the home glory, but not really enjoying best of weekends this time out at Oschersleben. From here, as mentioned, we are going to Hungary, then to Red Bull Ring, and then we've got the last trio of events in the Czech Republic and in Slovakia. The Czech rounds coming at Autodrom Most and in Brno, and the Slovakian one at, well, where else than Slovakia Ring. And this is for the race lead. Tomáš Pekař already 1.3 seconds ahead of Kadlecík. Štefančič further 1.8 seconds further adrift, and under pressure from Michael Hulm, who's enjoying the performance superiority of his Mark IV Clio, while Štefančič's car being a little bit more agile and nimble. Now towards the last corner, apparently called Zeppelin Kurve. Michael Hulm having a look down the inside on Štefančič. Štefančič then therefore choosing a wider line into the first corner, but defending well from the German. And Štefančič going really wide into the triple left-hander, making a mistake there, and really opening it for Michael Hulm, and the German is easily through into third overall. Still second in their respective classes. This fight didn't change anything about that. There is the fierce fight between Lantos and Primožič as we are quickly approaching the halfway mark of the race. Szabolcs Lantos, having raced for his own team in the previous seasons, he has now swapped and opted for the services of Karpek Racing Team, which is of course the most experienced team in the CLIO Cup, and they really know what they're doing. It's the force to be reckoned with. And Szabolcs Lantos, actually having been second overall in last season, losing to Tobias Pošík, who's now moved on to the TCR Eastern Europe. Szabolcs Lantos changed colours, and he's now racing with Karpek, and he's also moved into the Mark V Clio. He had a rather big crash last season in Austria, where we are going in, let's say, a month and a half. Once again through the chicane, you can see how the drivers are cutting the curbs on both sides. In the right-hand part of the chicane, there's the high sausage curb that also hits your car from the bottom quite aggressively, and then you're going through the bollards, through the sort of sink-in left-hander part of the chicane. 3.66 kilometers, that's the length of the current layout. And still the situation remains unresolved in the fight for 5th place. Tomáš Pekář, in the meantime, is managing to pull a bit more of a gap from Kadlecík. It seems as though Kadlecík is now dropping the pace, probably due to his tires losing grip. It seems that Tomáš Pekář is managing to actually work a bit better with his rubber. Nine and a half minutes left on the clock in this race. Still, this remains to be the closest fight in the field right now. Michał Primožič trying to come up with something, but he's not really managing to do so. He's all over the back end of that Carpac Racing's car. These are generally brand new Clios. I spoke to Michał Primožič at in the beginning of the weekend, and he mentioned that his is actually fresh from the factory, like fresh. Has done 0 kilometers. And this is its first racing encounter. Szabolcs Lantos has already driven his somewhere and has already dented it a little bit. Around the final corner we go. Tomáš Pekař, who's still leading the race after 10 laps. We already mentioned that he managed to win the championship last season with the Mark V Clio, or at least among the Mark V Clios, he was the biggest point scorer. However, the opposition wasn't great last season. This year it looks much more promising, and the more and more drivers are still switching to the Mark V, or the newer generation. Tomáš Pekař scored 77.5 points, having actually only contested half of the rounds, so he didn't actually start in Poznań, Grobnik and in Brno. Similar could be said of his teammate. Henrik Seibel, who did the opening 3 rounds, and then for the final part of the season it was actually Dejan Robida, Ivan Mandic, one time also David Němček and Francesco Stefan joining the field, but only for sole entries. This season it looks way more promising in terms of having a stronger field of Mark V Clios for the entire championship. So Pekař leading already 4.4 seconds further down the road. Then Martin Kadlecik, Hulm in 3rd, Stefancic 4th, Lantos 5th, trying to defend from Primožič. He's still having to fight hard for it. And there is another fight, actually. It's David Malinkovsky, currently in P8. From Igor Tomljanovic. Look at Tomljanovic. He now suddenly looks racy. And he was trying to slipstream behind the Mark V opponent. And now he's pulling alongside on the second straight, now switching back to the inside line, having a look. Oh, there's a crash! And that was completely unnecessary for the end of the weekend. Igor Tomljanovic completely failed to turn in properly and understeered into David Malinkovsky. Tomljanovic is now letting Malinkovsky go. There's another contact. Guys, what are you doing? 5 minutes to end this weekend, and we do not have to end it in the barriers and in the tiers. Please, take your cars home with you. So Tomljanovic completely understeered into David Malinkovsky, and as they were leaving the scene of the crash, they touched again, having sort of misunderstood each other as to what they both wanted to do. Ooh, Miha Primožič, a little too wide, and exploring the gravel traps of Oschersleben. Well, one of them. And the fight between Malinkovsky and Tomljanovic rages on. I hope my choice of words doesn't come literal in the next minutes. 4 minutes left on the clock right now to top the season opener of 2023. Pekař, Kadlecik, Hulm, Stefancic, Lantos, Primožič, Seibel, Malinkovsky, Tomljanovic and Fischer. That's the top 10. Behind them, Adam Konopka and Jirka Zbožínek. Another understeering moment for Tomljanovic. This time he was alone in it. So both cars fortunately managed to keep on going. Malinkovsky making a mistake of his own now. And he's coming a little... Oh, and there's a crash. There's another crash, and that's Adam Konopka, and that seems to have been a big one. That was a big one. The smoke coming out of the Clio. Isn't there a small fire? Hopefully not. Oh, that was a... That was a nasty shunt for the young Slovakian. Not a way you want to end your weekend. And the track marshals have got red flags ready. and they are now being waved. This is going to be it for the race weekend, apparently. On other cameras, we already see the red flags being waved, so the race is red flagged, and I believe it's also going to be discontinued because we only have just under 3 minutes left, and I believe that now it makes no sense to restart the race again. That was a big shunt for Adam Konopka, and the rescue vehicle is coming to the scene of the accident. Adam is still sitting in his car. So the track marshals are going to see if everything is okay. Let's wait for the signal. Let's wait for the signal. Unfortunately, we switched away from that, but now the track marshal is opening the car, talking to the driver. But that was a big shunt, honestly, because he went directly into the guardrail, or into the Armco. So no tire barrier to absorb the hit. So that must have been a nasty one. Yeah, let's see that again. Even though the car actually sort of slid along the barrier, it's still a big hit. And the medical car is at the scene. We hope that Adam is fine. Still no clear signs from the marshals. So it appears that Adam was actually wide on the exit of the corner, and the car probably started sliding. And as he tried to correct it with his steering wheel, he probably overcorrected it and found himself sliding the other way. Now he's out of the car, and he's on his feet talking to the marshals. All seems to be well, hopefully all seems to be well, but there's also an ambulance at the scene of the crash. Adam Konopka is out of the car and he's standing. That's the most important thing for now. Didn't maybe look like a terribly big hit, but trust me, it's definitely not something you enjoy. That is not definitely my idea of a Sunday drive. Yeah, but Adam seems to be generally fine. He's taken his helmet off, also the balaclava, and yeah, he's walking around the car and checking it together with the marshals. We might even cut back into the shot. No dramatic scenes to be witnessed there. So if we switch back to the camera, there should be no problem with it, although there is an ambulance at the scene. Usually when the situation looks too bad, then the broadcast director chooses not to switch to the pictures from the accident. But Adam is out of the car. All is looking rather fine, and yeah, Adam is walking on his own feet, and he's talking to the marshals. He might be a little shocked, to say the least, and he might now go and have a precautionary medical check performed. But I believe that all should be fine, and yeah, the rest of the pack is now going again, and I think that we will simply just drive the cars back into the pit lane, and with that the race will be ended. Yes, also the live timing screen already says that the race is finished, so this is the final order. Of course, still subject to scrutiny. Some of the cars might still be called for a scrutineering check to the technical marshals, and as usual, the order right away at the end of the race is never the official one, but generally we know what the situation is. So it is Tomáš Pekař victorious again. So it's a double victory to open the season with here in 2023 here at Oschersleben. Martin Kadlecík coming home second once again. Michael Hulm this time out on the outright podium in third, but second in his class. Then Nick Stefancic dropped down to fourth, but he remained second. among the Mark V Clios. Then we've got Szabolcs Lantos, Miha Primožič, Henrik Seibel, David Malinkovsky, Igor Tomljanovic, Thomas Fischer, and basically Jiří Zbožínek. Adam Konopka should drop down to the last. The red flags are still being shown, and yeah, the rest of the pack is now returning to the pit lane and into Parc Fermé, presumably. Well, the Parc Fermé is actually still occupied with the TCR cars, but the Clios are turning in anyway. Yeah, and they will now go into Parc Fermé. Regulations, do the interviews, etc., etc., and that will be it for the season opener here in Germany. So that's it for this weekend. Where to go next? We've already commented on that a couple of times, but definitely let's remind ourselves for the end of the broadcast, because this was the first out of 7 weekends basically. All of the classes are going to do 6 rounds, but some of them are splitting for some of the rounds, which means that this was the first weekend. We are then going racing at the end of April to Hungary. From there, we are going to Austria, then TCRs, and I believe Clios will go to Slovakia. Then we have another round in Most, then Slovakia again, and Brno for the season finale. We are missing the rounds in Poland and Croatia this time, as the tracks have been deemed too dangerous after last year's events. And so that's the 2023 calendar, with Oschersleben joining the list for the first time ever. And it's been a pretty good weekend to start the season with, really. I definitely enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed it just as well, or more, of course. You're free to do so. And if you like ESET Cup Series, if you like TCR Eastern Europe, if you like Clio Cup, be sure that we will be back with more action. Also with so popular and so funny Renault Twingos for the next round. So a lot to be looking forward to. And make sure that you tune back in. As already mentioned, the last weekend of April we'll be back with our stream and with all the racing action. My name is Pavel Fabry and I'm your commentator, and not only for the weekend but for the entire season. And I'll be looking forward to more wonderful motorsport moments together with you. So thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for remaining faithful to us. And from the Oschersleben, it is now a very warm goodbye.